Hello, my name is Rory Malone. I'm a visual artist who lives and works out of Dublin, Ireland. The work I make mainly revolves around scientific tools and instruments. I use these apparatuses to sort of make sculptures and videos. During this talk, I plan on showing just a couple of examples of artworks that I have come across that I think deal with climate change and the Anthropocene really, really effectively. So, um, if there's one thing that's sort of common between all these artworks, sort of apart from climate, it's action. And I think to combat such an elusive, ever-changing enemy such as climate change, I believe that an artwork should contain an element of action. Sort of common themes that occur frequently in projects that deal with the topic of climate are sort of collaboration, community, workshop, interaction, engagement, activism, and participation. So let's go on to the first artwork. So this work is called Nuage Vert, which means green cloud in French. It was a public art installation presented in Helsinki in 2008 by the artist duo He He. This duo consists of Helen Evans and Heiko Hansen, and the work was made in collaboration with Helsinki Energy. For this collaboration, the artist duo projected a large green outline around the cloud of the Salmisaari power plant in Helsinki. Sort of like, as you can see, it's a laser projection that's encompassing the cloud. And using live energy data from the power plant, the green cloud would grow bigger as the residents consumed less electricity. So you can see the energy usage there. This artwork was paired with a campaign entitled Unplug, which encouraged residents of the local area to unplug electrical devices from 7 to 8 o'clock and go outside and look at the artwork, the green cloud laser projection. As a result of this, an impressive 35,000 residents and 3 large companies took part in this Unplug event. And during the hour that during the hour of this event, the power plant saw a 65% of power reduction. And I just have a short video of it that I'll play.
Au moins minimum un an. Soit ça marche pas, il faut attendre quand même un an. Si tu veux essayer que ça marche, soit tu le fais comme ça.
So it's really quite like quite like a ghostly sort of spectre, which I think is quite appropriate, seeing as it's hovering over a power plant. The smoke coming from a power plant. And here's just a short quote from the duo. They say, "This is the first time there has been public monitoring of the collective consumption within a local area. Incredibly, despite the current energy crisis, electricity is only monitored on an individual basis. The results of the Unplug event that was realized on a tiny budget and with limited resources shows that making collective information available to the community in a public forum can make a difference." So this was made in Helsinki, and in 2008, as a result of the success of the project, and in conjunction with this specific artwork being named Environmental Artwork of the Year by the Finnish Environmental Art Foundation, Helsinki Energy announced that it would release more real-time data about energy consumption in the Helsinki area. So Helsinki Energy was that power plant that was being projected on. And here's just a final statement from the duo in response to that, for them winning that award. They say, "Since Friday the 6th of February 2009, the hourly updated information about electricity consumption has been available online. Inspired by the success of the Nuage Vert project, Helsinki Energia is the first energy company in Finland to release this amount of detailed real-time information. This level of information transparency about energy consumption is also rare amongst energy companies in the world today. Helsinki Energia sees this as one method to spread awareness about the need to decrease energy in the near future. So I think just this work is a really, really good example of how just an artwork can actually bring about institutional change for the betterment of the environment. Okay, so that was that work. I'll go on to the next one. This work is by Jean-Marc Chaumin and Eline Dehanchoveka. It's a series of sculptural works, and the sculptures are each sculpture is made specifically to liquefy the oxygen in the air. So by using liquid nitrogen cooled copper funnels, a tiny bit of the oxygen in the gallery space is condensed and dripped out the bottom of each of these funnels. As you can see there, it's sort of like a blue mist coming out. And as well as this, each audience member in the gallery space, each one of them was invited to catch a drop of liquid oxygen on their finger as they entered the exhibition. But obviously, once it touched their skin, the drop would immediately evaporate. So this work, I think anyway, this work explores the fact that sort of the non-permanence of oxygen in our atmosphere has not yet entered collective consciousness. So just to explain that a bit more, so due to climate and global warming, we are sort of almost hyper aware of the precious nature of water and electricity, but this attention has not yet moved to the oxygen in our air. So with rising CO2 levels and mass deforestation, the importance of oxygen is more paramount than ever. And I think that's what this work attempts to highlight. The work is called 2080 millimeters. And the reason this work is called 2080 millimeters is because if the entire atmosphere of the Earth was liquefied, then the planet would be covered with a 2080 millimeter layer of liquid oxygen. So it just so happens that that layer of liquid oxygen is just about higher than the height of a human. So I think this is it offers a bit of hope. I think the fact that the level is still above average human height, it still gives us some hope to change our actions and to reflect upon what we can do before that level might lower below our heads, if you know what I mean. So, and as you can see in this image, liquid oxygen has a really gorgeous blue earthly color as well. So it almost looks like the most purest, most hyper-real form of water you've ever seen. And as I said earlier, in the exhibition, as an audience member entered, they'd be invited to just catch a drop of the liquid oxygen on their finger, only for it to evaporate immediately in their hand. And I think that's the most important part of this entire work. I think that this evaporation, just without words, shows the fragility of this essential resource, that it seems that nobody is aware of its nobody's aware of this fragility, basically. Yeah, so I'll go on to the next work. This is a work a bit more close to home. So this project was exhibited in the recent exhibition in the Dublin Science Gallery called Plastic. This project was created by 4 designers, Rory Maher, Alex Hennessy, and Joe Fahey from the National College of Art and Design. As you can see on the wall, each one of these tiles is made from recycled high-density polyethylene. So high-density polyethylene is one of the most common single-use plastics you can find. Tons of stuff is made out of it, so milk bottles and shampoo bottles and stuff like that. But all of the plastic for this project was all found on Killiney Beach in Dublin, sort of foraged as they're cleaning up the beach. To produce these tiles, the team would gather the waste plastic from the beach and melt it down. And once the melted plastics are sort of pliable enough so they could roll it in their hands, they'd roll in the colored sands you can see in the image. And not only would the sands give a sort of very aesthetically beautiful marbled effect to the tile surface, but it also greatly improved the structural strength of the tiles. This project is it repurposes plastic waste as a useful material. It also uses the long lifespan of waste plastic in their favor to make a durable, lightweight building material. I think while this piece may be considered more design than contemporary art, I still feel that it engages with the core theme of action that I was talking about earlier. It's a very active work. And I think, yeah, it deals very well with a pressing problem to the local ecosystem. So I'll go on to the next work. So this is the Antarctic Biennale. The Antarctic Biennale, it was a 2-week voyage to the Antarctic, and it was founded by the English curator Nadim Saman and the Russian artist / scientist Alexander Ponomarev. The intent of this voyage was to expose a team of artists, writers, philosophers, poets, and scientists to the Antarctic in hopes of those sort of culture producers would be able to make effective images to help us understand Antarctica anew. And upon the voyage, there was sort of an intensive program of artistic activities, on-site installations, and intellectual exchanges to sort of stimulate that rapid production of images during the 2-week voyage. The birth of this concept began when Alexander Ponomarev, he set up the Antarctic Pavilion in the Venice Biennale in 2017. So for everyone who doesn't know, the Venice Biennale is this huge international art show that happens in Venice every 2 years. And it normally has multiple pavilions for various countries to put forward a national artist to represent their country in the sort of art Olympics of the world. So it's normally very sort of nationally specific to whichever country is applying. But in this case, Ponomarev, he set up the Antarctic Pavilion as a transnational space where people from various countries could come and represent Antarctica in an artistically highlight the importance it holds on the international stage. So knowing this background, it's almost obvious to see why he would go on to make an Antarctic Biennale. So as I said earlier, it was made by Alexander Ponomarev and the curator Nadim Saman. So this is just a short quote that Saman said on board the vessel on their way to Antarctica, just about the project. So he said, "Antarctica is a place that is communicated as being so central to our understanding of planetary systems such as climate change and climate sciences, a place that everyone is told about and expected to care about, and that is so central to many of our contemporary narratives, and yet most people will never go there. We choose to go there in order to find a way to communicate perhaps an undiscovered aspect of Antarctica's cultural potential. We do that with artists, writers, scientists, journalists, and philosophers in hope that they will find a way to interpret Antarctica anew." So Antarctica as a continent, it actually has no indigenous population whatsoever, and it has no permanent residents. So, the continent sustains a population of around 1,100 people throughout its sunless winter, and around 4,000 people during its summer months. And seeing as there's no permanent population, these people are mostly scientists. So for the most part, the distribution of images from Antarctica, so the distribution of images to sort of the world from Antarctica, is supplied by documentary photographers and filmmakers who are embedded within this scientific community. Thus, any effective images coming from the Antarctic will always take a secondary role to the scientific research being carried out on the basis. And as we've seen statistical proof of climate change and sort of picturesque photographs of glaciers and penguins, they can only be so effective in altering the global public's self-image. So the core reason for facilitating this artistic Antarctic Biennale voyage is because artists are the most well-equipped image makers to produce valuable images from this important space. The artist's work you can see shown here is the artist Yuto Barada. And basically what you see here is during the entire voyage of the Antarctic Biennale crew to the Antarctic, Barada collected all the food waste from the passengers and all the liquid boat emissions that were going out into the water, being put out of the vessel into the ocean. And he took all these ingredients and he distilled them right down, and he made dyes out of these sort of waste products. And with those dyes, he dyed sheets of plastic, and then only to lay them upon the Arctic tundra. And I think this work is really good just because it shows that even the ecological impact of the Biennale voyage was being artistically and critically analyzed. So sort of they left no stone unturned. They wanted to even pick apart their own impact upon the Antarctic ecosystem and examine it. So this is another work from the Antarctic Biennale. This piece is called Arriba, and it's by the Ecuadorian artist Paul Rosero. The work consists of a live cocoa tree from the Ecuadorian rainforest encased in a temperature-controlled greenhouse that is sustaining an Ecuadorian climate for the plant. So basically, the greenhouse also has a double function. Number one, to keep the plant from freezing in the cold Arctic air, and number two, to keep the Antarctic ecosystem safe from any foreign diseases or insects that may be in the plant. Sort of the twist to this is to sustain this sort of alien climate in the greenhouse. For the plant, there's a medium-sized diesel engine right beside it that is burning diesel and pumping smoke into the pure Antarctic air. I feel that this piece really aggressively shows the pure energy cost it takes to sustain or remove a material out of its home habitat. And it really sort of asks us to reflect on just the pure cost of energy that it takes to gather raw materials or to cut up forest or anything like that. Another side of this work is that it alludes to a time past. So during the mid to late Cretaceous period, Antarctica had quite a tropical climate and an ecosystem that could have probably sustained the cocoa tree. With this in mind, the work acts as like a biological flag that announces the long history, but also the potential temporality of Antarctica. And this temporality that could ultimately be permanently altered by human intervention. So I'll just for the Antarctic Biennale, I just have one final quote from the curator, Nadim Saman. So he says, the first Antarctic Biennale was both literally and metaphorically a vehicle to deliver potent, effective images of the South Polar region and to give the public a new understanding of the fragility of the current global climate. So yeah, that was a little bit about the Antarctic Biennale. The next work is called Harvest. So Harvest is a work by the New Zealand-born artist Julian Oliver. Harvest uses wind energy to power a computer that is mining cryptocurrency, and the earnings of which are used to source the funding for climate change research. So let's just explain that a bit. So taking the form of a 2-meter wind turbine with environmental sensors and a weatherproof computer, the piece feeds from the two primary symptoms of our changing climate. That's wind, gust, and storms. It does this by transforming wind energy into the electricity required to meet the demanding task of mining cryptocurrency. So just a bit about that mining of cryptocurrency. I'm sure some of you have heard of Bitcoin. So the digital cryptocurrency known as Bitcoin, it rewards people who offer up some of their computer's computing power to do the intense on the actual Bitcoin currency. So the reward that the cryptocurrency gives you is just a tiny bit of Bitcoin, which can be transferred into real money. So in this case for Harvest, rather than filling the digital wallet of the artists, all rewards earned by the Harvest mining machine are paid out as donations to non-profit climate change research organizations so they can better study this planetary scale challenge. And I think one of the reasons why I think I really like this work is because it acts as a fully functional prototype beyond sort of the artistic context. The artist envisions that hundreds of sort of these Harvest nodes could be deployed in the windiest parts of the world, together generating large sums of supplementary funding for climate change NGOs, and sort of in a time where climate science itself is under quite a siege from fossil fueled interests of governments and corporations. So yeah, that's Harvest by Julian Oliver. And this is just the final work I'm going to talk about. It's called, so this work is by the Dutch artist called Titus Bierstecker. And the work is called Wither because it sculpturally displays the global rate of deforestation in real time. So this work was made during the COVID-19 lockdown. And during the lockdown, there's a 71% acceleration of deforestation happening in Brazilian rainforests just through the lack of enforcement as a result of the pandemic. So this rapid acceleration brought to us sort of a hard to imagine figure of 2,500 meters squared of sort of ancient rainforest that was being lost each second. So the sculpture in of itself is just a selection of leaves made out of a very special transparent plastic. And once a current is passed through this plastic, it turns opaque. And sort of these electrical signals are controlled by an adaptive set of deforestation data. And I think when we see, I'll play a video of it now, but I think it's just a really chilling work. I think it's just really sort of tragically beautiful. But I'll play it now. So yeah, that's the end of my talk. My website link is there. If anyone has any further questions, they can reach me there. My email and all stuff is there. And there are just some links to the things I was talking about if anyone is interested to look into them further. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Rory, thank you.